What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Straight Shoot channel. It is Jack and Steve today, and we are mourning. We are mourning three very tragic deaths that happened in this week. They say that darkness comes in threes, Steve. Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, and now Hulk Hogan, all passing away July 2025. I guess you can say that two of these are tragedies because obviously Hulk Hogan had neck surgery and then got into cardiac arrest and died. Was healthy and then he wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
Malcolm Jamal Warner, way too young, way too young. Obviously, the famous actor, Bill Cosby Show, Suits. He was in Dexter. He was in a lot of different sitcoms, a lot of different drama series that you could catch on Netflix.
Yep.
And then obviously Ozzy Osbourne, just a living legend. I mean, we talked about it right before we went live. He should have been dead 50 years ago, but because he's a legend, God left him here.
Yeah.
And he let him have one final show as well. But three icons dead in 1 week. What are your thoughts as we make this video?
I think it's crazy because if you look at everything and everyone, like the three names here, and obviously this is a wrestling channel, so we are going to focus more on the Hulk Hogan thing, and obviously Ozzy being a Hall of Famer, but we can't take away that this is like three major names from like growing up in the 80s and the 90s. And like with Malcolm being in like Suits, Sons of Anarchy, he was always like around. It's not like his career died after the Cosby Show. Like he was always finding ways to kind of like reinvent himself into different situations as he got older. But at 50, 51, 52 years old, like it's too young, man. Like that's especially with how lifestyles are now, people living into their mid 70s, 80s. Look at Ozzy. Like he lived, like you said, 50 years longer than he should have. And then obviously Hulk being early 70s. And I said this, it was kind of funny. I went for lunch with my mom today, and she's a diehard 80s and 90s wrestling fan as well. And she said to me, she goes, "It's just wild, like, you know, Hogan, like you think of his moniker, like the immortal Hulk Hogan," and we'll get into Hulk Hogan a lot more into this episode, but the immortal Hulk Hogan. And it's like it hits you. It's like immortality is definitely not real, and a lot of us, especially guys, we grow up thinking like we're immune to any types of danger and that kind of thing. And then you look at like this icon, this larger than life persona, and anyone who was beneficial, like got the opportunity to stand in front of him, and I did 18 months ago, he was larger than life. It's crazy. But let's do Ozzy first. I personally never got to see Sabbath. I've always been a Sabbath fan. Everyone in my family has seen Sabbath, but I never got to see Sabbath live. I think my dad saw them in the Czech Republic in 2016, 2014. And like I think Johnny Depp's band opened for them. He said it was like the most insane concert he's ever been to. And like my dad's been to a lot of concerts. So and then my uncles have obviously seen Sabbath in there when they were younger than me. So like Ozzy going, man, like we said before coming on air, like the fact that he got his last hurrah, that's rare that you get your last hurrah. Ozzy going out is kind of like the Ultimate Warrior going out. You know what I mean? He got put in the Hall of Fame and like died 24 hours later. It's crazy.
What's crazy, I mean, he should have been dead 50 years ago, which was in his 20s because of all the drugs he was doing. In his 20s, he was doing a ton of drugs. In his 30s, he was doing a ton of drugs. In his 40s, he was doing a ton of drugs. In his 50s, he was drinking a lot of alcohol. In his 60s, he was drinking a lot of alcohol. And then that's when he stopped. I think the last 10 years of his life, he was sober, off of booze, off of drugs, off of everything. At that point, his body was already crumbling. It was breaking down on him. And there's that sad interview that he did earlier this year, I believe, with a reporter saying he's like, "It's still here in my heart, man. My heart and my brain work, but my body is just falling to pieces."
Yeah.
And he was just a guy that my dad infamously said, he's like, Ozzy Osbourne is what death looks like when you don't die. Like Ozzy Osbourne is a living legend, not just because of the grounds he broke being the lead singer of Black Sabbath back in the day when what was it, the European takeover with Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath back in the 70s,
Yeah.
after the Beatles run and Rolling Stones, of course. But the fact that he was able to transition out from, making songs like Paranoid, making songs like Iron Man,
Yeah.
to going off on his own, Blizzard of Oz record, obviously Crazy Train is like his #1 hit. Osmosis, I was listening to in the car earlier today in the mid 90s. No More Tears, that record in the late 90s as well. Like, just iconic rock album
Yeah.
after iconic rock album after iconic rock album. And he was a larger than life influence because you didn't have to be a music fan to know the name Ozzy Osbourne. He was all over the place, man. He was one of the best personalities for someone that you couldn't understand a fucking word he was saying in the last 30 years of his life than anybody that you will ever see again.
Yeah.
How he brought his whole family into a reality TV series with Sharon, with Jack, with Kelly, all of them. How he was able to live through a period where he was snorting up ants on the side of a pool in Motley when he was on tour with Motley Crue. He bit the head of a bat. He bit his head off on stage in front of people. This guy was insane.
Yeah.
Talk about being crazy. Like, let's get crazy. He was the epitome of crazy, man. Ozzy Osbourne is a living legend because he's one of the greatest rock stars of all time, one of the greatest metal frontmen we'll ever see.
Yeah.
Because he had more heart than anybody. In his final show 2 weeks ago, back to the beginning with Black Sabbath, Axl Rose was there, Slash was there, Steven Tyler was there. The list goes on and on with the living legends in the rock industry that were there to, share the stage with Ozzy, who has like his throne because he can't stand up. You could tell, dude. He was like,
well, the Parkinson's.
I thought he was gonna stand up. I thought he was gonna stand up and fall over, and I'm like, oh my god, Ozzy Osbourne. Like, everything's still there. Everything in here is still there. Everything up here is still there.
Yeah.
But his body just like couldn't keep up, and you could tell. I don't know if you saw the video of him singing "Mama, I'm Coming Home" in that show 2 weeks ago. Ozzy Osbourne, as living of a legend as he is, they've been auto-tuning him for years, right? They've been auto-tuning everything that he's put out. All of his concerts, I feel like there's a vocalist that sings in the in the backstage area that sounds just like him, and that's who's singing. Because for Mama, I'm Coming Home, if you listen to the song, there's no auto-tune on that.
No, it's raw.
That is 76-year-old dying Ozzy Osbourne singing that song.
Yeah.
And you could just tell, I think he means it this time. He means, like, Mama, I'm going to see you soon.
Yeah.
That's what it almost felt like.
Yeah.
Listening to that back, I listened to that back the other day, and I'm like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
he sounded sick. Like,
Oh,
this is just a 76-year-old broken down man singing a song that he made famous 50 years ago. The fact that he's able to do that 2 weeks before his death and got that final send-off with every living rock legend that there is in his home state, in his home country, it was unbelievable. Not to mention the fact, and we're going to get to Hulk Hogan, he's also a WWE Hall of Famer.
He is.
He's a pop culture icon for what he's... I mean, Hannah Montana referenced Ozzy Osbourne in an episode back in the day on Disney Channel. Like, Ozzy Osbourne, everybody... Dude, Ozzy Osbourne... Here's the story I want to get to with Ozzy Osbourne. You had the grateful and fortunate moment to meet Terry. You met Hulk Hogan. I almost had the opportunity to interview Ozzy Osbourne one-on-one back in 2020. It would have been at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. But obviously, we all know what happened in 2020. COVID happened. So that U.S. tour was stricken from the record books. And he also developed Parkinson's that year. So for the final 5 years of his life, developed a horrible case of Parkinson's disease. So we weren't able to get it done. In 2022, 2 years later, I was fortunate enough to reach out to his team to see if we can, reconcile, do it again. He wasn't doing any interviews at that point. Obviously, he was living full-time in Birmingham. Not Birmingham.
Birmingham.
Somewhere outside of London. And his wife was hosting a photo shoot to promote his latest album, Patient Number 9, which he has a solid record with you know, multiple different rock stars across the board. Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters got to be on that record as a drummer before he died as well. But Ozzy Osbourne was doing a photo shoot where content creators such as myself got to dress up in Ozzy gear, leather jackets. We got to scream. We got to wear his sunglasses. And Sharon Osbourne is just screaming at all of us, just scream for Ozzy. So we got to scream for Ozzy. And I posted that picture on Instagram the other day too, because it's like, that's what Ozzy Osbourne was, man. He was crazy. He was one of a kind. I thought he was going to outlive us all. Drew McIntyre, WWE superstar, put out a post on X, on Twitter, saying, I thought Ozzy was going to outlive us all, man. And the fact that he was I thought he was like 95.
So did
that's
I.
what he looked like, right?
Yeah.
The fact that he was that young, 76, I mean, he went out in a blaze of glory, man. There's no better way to go out. Obviously, Malcolm Jamal Warner, 51 years old, way too early. And it really hits you in the heart to know that not every day is guaranteed. But Ozzy Osbourne was blessed enough to make every wrong decision in the book in his youth and still come out on top as the most lovable rock star of all time.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that Instagram post because I wasn't too sure what it was. I thought you just did some cosplay and decided to post it up there. So that I'm glad there's a really cool backstory to that, and I'm really sorry that you didn't get to get that interview because I know you as a creator and as a professional, the one biggest thing is I know you've got your list and you've got your list of icons, and you have been blessed and privileged so far to really chop some off that list that you have. So I'm really sorry that you didn't get to get that one, man. So I just want to touch on one thing about Ozzy because I think you covered virtually everything. It goes back to him cutting everything out, the drugs, the alcohol, the hard living. I don't know if everybody remembers, if you go back to Kevin Nash and his son, when he passed away at the age of like what, 26, 25, something like that. What people don't realize is when you shock your system by cutting everything out cold turkey, it's actually a negative process to your body. So, and that's what happened with Kevin Nash's son. They were going so hard, drinking virtually every night, and they said, oh, we're just going to get ourselves healthy, which credits Kevin Nash because he did it. He got himself healthy. He got himself built back up in a really good place, but it was a shock to his son's system. His son was used to from like 16 to 26. Now you think about Ozzy Osbourne, what the punishment he did to his body for 45, 50 years, right? To quit cold turkey, the fact that he survived 10 years doing that is wild to me. There had to be some form of doctor influence on that, because a shock to the system like that, when you take out alcohol, the liver regenerates within 90 days of quitting drinking. It cleans itself and it regenerates itself. But 50 years of damage, like your body is going to go through, your heart is going to go through a lot of stuff. So I'm just so surprised that he lasted that extra 10 years. But like you said, being home in Birmingham, having the rock star tribute farewell, I think that's, you know how they say every cowboy wants to like die out on the field, up by a tree. I think that's how every rock star wants to go out, with the like on their own sword type thing. And Ozzy, in the most Ozzy fashion, did it. You know, and that's the one.
Want to hear a crazy fact?
What?
I read this. I think Chris Jericho actually shared it on his Instagram story, because Chris Jericho, like, you think I was a big Ozzy Osbourne fan? Chris Jericho, like, that was his white whale, I think, for Talk Is Jericho. I don't think he ever got it. He got to share some moments with Ozzy on screen on Raw. But I don't think he got that one-on-one interview, because Ozzy just, you couldn't understand him, right? So it's like, even if you got the interview, it's like, you're not going to be able to transcribe anything that he said, which probably makes it special. But Ozzy Osbourne and Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead, both died, I believe it was 17 days following their final farewell concert, which is crazy because they lived the same lifestyle. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. And for whatever reason, God God left them here. Same thing with Keith Richards, and God bless Keith Richards from the Rolling
The
Stones.
fact that he's still
still
going.
kicking it. Still kicking it. When you think of like tragic deaths, like Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna dying in that helicopter crash, he was only 41. His daughter was
Yeah.
only 13. Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters was 50 when he died.
Stevie
Kurt
Ray
Cobain,
Stevie Ray
27.
Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan, one of the
Stevie Ray Vaughan was a kid.
Yeah.
He was a kid and he was immortalized.
Yeah.
Ozzy outsurvived all of them.
Yeah.
And he should have been dead decades ago.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about Ozzy, was that he was just his fun-loving self.
Yeah.
And he's just like, you can't understand him. He's always laughing. He's always smiling. And he looks like death. He looks like he belongs in a coffin. But he was still surviving and out-surviving everybody around him. It was insane. So the fact that he finally went is just like, I still can't believe it. I don't think it's settled in.
Yeah. I want to get into Hogan, because this is what the thumbnail of the video is, and I think all the wrestling fans want to hear kind of our thoughts and opinions on it. And I think we're just going to lay it out like this. We are going to talk about Hulk Hogan. We are not going to talk about Terry Bollea. I got to meet Hulk Hogan 18 months ago down in Clearwater, thanks to Jacob Fatu, just being Jacob Fatu. And we kind of just ran in and took over the place at that meet and greet. And the one thing, I think I've told you this offline when we first interacted, that when I met Hulk Hogan, it was how he shook your hand. And the big thing about me is like, do you look someone in the eye when you shake hands? I was raised old school. I was raised by my grandfather. Shake hands firm. If you're genuinely talking to someone, the one thing that shocked me is like the cover over the hand. He shakes your hand like you're the only person in the room. And he did with that with me, and it was like a good quick 5-minute conversation. The clip is only what I showed on social media, but there was so much more to it. And it's just he was humble in his old age with the fans, I guess. And it's just crazy that we're talking about this 18 months later and what he did for the business. There's no sports entertainment without Hulk Hogan. Like, Vince McMahon's vision would have somehow come out a different way. Maybe if it was Savage, or maybe they put it on Andre, or they found somebody random. But there's no sports entertainment. There's no pro wrestling in pop culture. There's no crossing over into movies and Hollywood. There's no John Cena doing his thing in Hollywood. There's no The Rock in Hollywood. Like, it's all on the shoulders and the platform that Hogan built. And yeah, okay, people can say he was selfish. He refused to do work in the ring, take certain bumps, blah, blah, blah. Selfishly, in a way, I think he earned it. I think he earned, quote, creative control at one point. Maybe not in the early days, but like after 25 years of really outselling everybody at that time, when it wasn't even heard of to be the top merch seller. Like, sometimes when you would go to those events, the only merch they had was Hulk Hogan. And there were so many other people on the roster that you can think of, right? So, hell, this guy in North America helped settle a potential global war. You know, if you think about it, where they had, you know, the, what was his name? Ivan Koloff. Not Ivan Koloff. Was it Ivan Koloff? Yeah, it was Ivan Koloff. That whole thing. So, it's just crazy the areas that Hulk Hogan was able to get himself in. And the things that, if you look back, you can say that's because of Hulk Hogan. That's because of Hulk Hogan. So I know there's controversy about Hulk Hogan, and I do not agree with the stuff that he did outside. I do not agree with the lifestyle. I don't agree with any of it. I think it was as far as fucked up as you can get. But when it comes to what we love, sports entertainment, professional wrestling, you cannot take away what Hulk Hogan did for the business.
Hulk Hogan is to WWE what Jerry West is to the NBA. Hulk Hogan is to WWE what Babe Ruth was to Major League Baseball. He's what Vince Lombardi was to the NFL. Hell, he's what George Washington was to America. Yeah, I said it. Hulk Hogan was the guy that transcended an entire corny. What does Cody Rhodes always say? Corny succubus. That's like his
Carnival.
That's like his go-to.
Yeah, it's like
but it was carny, right?
Yeah, it was carny. It's carny.
Referred to as wrestling.
Yeah, they're carnies.
Vincent McMahon Sr.
Yep.
He ran a wrestling promotion.
Yep.
Vincent Kennedy McMahon wanted to turn that wrestling promotion into a sports entertainment phenomenon. And he needed a dance partner, and he needed a face, and he needed a guy that would sell tickets and put asses into seats back in the 80s. And that was Terry Bollea, who became Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And Hulk Hogan became a larger-than-life superstar in an era where you didn't really see too many of those in the world of professional wrestling. He was the first ever trailblazer superstar that the pro wrestling universe had ever seen. He was able to transition that into one of the Rocky movies. Him and Sylvester Stallone on screen went a long way. I mean, Eat Your Vitamins, all the cereal boxes that he was on, all the merch that he sold, the sunglasses, the mullet, everything. Hulkamania will live forever. He said that in the 80s.
Yep.
And it's still running wild on all of us, brother. So Hulk Hogan, like when everybody wants to talk about their Mount Rushmores, right? That's the most common question someone could ask a celebrity. What's your Mount Rushmore of this? What's your Mount Rushmore of that? There is no professional wrestling Mount Rushmore that should have Hulk Hogan left off of their Mount Rushmore. Because when you think of Mount Rushmores, it's the people that got you to place to place. My quick WWE Mount Rushmore would be Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, and Roman Reigns, just because of how they transcended the business in eras where it was struggling. Hulk Hogan transcended the business of professional wrestling when nobody even knew they wanted professional wrestling in their life.
So I have a different outlook on that. Just quickly, you know that statue that it's the guy, I don't know the name of it, the guy holding up the globe? It's that image of like a god of something holding up the earth or whatever. So basically, I look at that as when you talk about the Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling, there's no actual mountain without Hulk Hogan. The mountain is Hulk Hogan. You can just carve in the rest after that. That's how I look at Hogan. You could look at Andre, but a lot of people say Andre as a locker room leader in a different way. My Mount Rushmore is completely different because I look at it as, like you said, what you did for the business, but how you've kept the business alive. You know what I mean? That's how I look at the business. But without the mountain, you can't make a Mount Rushmore. Hogan is that mountain. And then you carve the faces in for the Mount Rushmore. So I don't put Hogan on my Mount Rushmore because Hogan is the mountain. He's the mountaintop. You know what I mean? And then the rest comes after that. If I'm going to give a Mount Rushmore, it's Austin, Triple H, probably Andre, and then Roman Reigns. So, you know, and it's just because of without a dance partner, Hogan was never going to get that, and they needed the locker room leader, and at that point, that was Andre the Giant. And it's how, like, when Andre was smart. Andre was really smart, and he knew who was going to be best for business before best for business was even a cliche marketing term. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. But like you said, like, you can't have a Mount Rushmore without Hogan's face on it. I don't think you can have a Mount Rushmore without the fucking mountain. So that's the way I look at it. And that's Hulk Hogan. You know, the amount of things that you can look back at in professional wrestling that helped professional wrestling, that helped the business, minus TNA. Don't mean to joke, minus TNA, because that 6-sided ring should definitely have stayed. But you look at the Attitude Era. There's no Attitude Era without the third man. And if it was Sting, it wouldn't have worked. But with it being Hogan, it worked. And it worked perfectly. There's still people like, dude, I'm not even doing this on purpose. I'm wearing an NWO shirt technically because of Hulk Hogan. There's no outsiders without Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? So
Nope.
You can say there's two moments that developed the Attitude Era, which we can still arguably say is the greatest era in pro wrestling. Hogan being the third man, and the Montreal Screwjob when Mr. McMahon was created. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Those are the 2 points that created the Attitude Era and started the Monday Night Wars. So I'm just saying, like, I know there is so much that people are going to say in the comments about, oh, Hogan this, Hogan that. Look at it from the business side of things. You know, look at it from you as fans would not be watching the type of product you're watching now if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. I never thought we'd be having this conversation. Like you said about Ozzy, and Drew said, like, Ozzy was going to outlive us all. I thought that about Hogan. Like, there, you know, you think about Flair. Okay, Flair, we know he's been going through a lot of medical issues lately. Flair should have been dead 10 years ago. He had a 2% chance of living. Flair dying, I've thought about. You know, Warrior passing away, I've thought about. Hogan? It just doesn't, like McMahon. Vince dying doesn't compute to me. You know what I mean? Because those have been like not the influential people, but the people that created me as a content creator. You know, if there's no sports entertainment, there's no pro wrestling, there's no me as a content creator. There's none of the content creators you watch. And again, it all falls back to 2 people, Vince McMahon and the pony he strapped to, and that was Hulk Hogan. So,
And the fact that he was able to transition out of that in a way that nobody ever suspected that would happen by being the third man, being in WCW, joining forces with Nash and Hall, doing that leg drop that nobody was suspecting in that moment. And I know that the real American gimmick had run stale there for a while, but people still loved Hulk Hogan, right? In the same way that John Cena's same ass shtick as a baby face for year after year after year when fans wanted him to turn heel was kind of stale, but you're like, he's the greatest of all time, right?
Mhm.
And then when that turn finally happened, you're like, nobody was expecting this. Hulk Hogan's heel turn is, if not the greatest heel turn of all time, it's top 3. I would say it's probably the biggest heel turn of all time because in that era, nobody ever thought Hulk Hogan would be a bad guy because he was a good guy for the first, 15 years of his pro wrestling life.
What do you got as the top 3 heel turns? I've got the only 3 that I can think of that changed the business. Actually, I've got 4 that changed the business: Hogan, Cena, Austin.
Oh, I didn't think about Austin because that one was so quick.
But it was a long play, and you never thought of Austin shaking hands with McMahon. That was the thing. And then Roman with Paul.
My third was Seth turning on the Shield because that started 15 years of it all.
Fair. But I agree with that, but I just never thought I'd see Paul Heyman just lean over and just sitting on the same couch as Roman, like, and we can make a whole video on that about.
It's great because that is one of those things to have a sidebar conversation about because Paul Heyman hasn't hit a home run with every client or advocate or friend that he's had. Remember Paul Heyman and Cesaro?
Yep.
On paper, it sounded great.
Paul Heyman and Ryback.
Paul Heyman and Ryback, Paul Heyman and Curtis Axel.
Yeah.
Like there were so many guys that he partnered up with that just kind of fizzle out and you don't remember them, right? Like if that was, I don't know, like the Miz on the couch with them, it'd have been like, oh, this is interesting that they're going in this route, but like also like, okay, we'll see where it goes. The fact that it was Roman, their top babyface, with Paul Heyman, their top heel manager.
Yeah.
Instantly you knew, oh, they're cooking with fire now. They're cooking with gasoline. Like this is going to be big.
But you run it back and you run that back and you think of how they developed the Roman heel turn with Paul Heyman. You think of how they developed the Austin heel turn with Vince, and how cinematic the heel turn with Cena was this past year at Elimination Chamber. You run it all the way back. It's because of how Eric Bischoff played off the heel turn for Hulk Hogan. Another foundation for a phenomenal heel turn. Another part of the business that we love. We want to see, like, what is Twitter talking about up until today, every single day? When's Cody turning heel? When Cody turns heel, it will be one of the most talked about things for the next 5-10 years. You know, they're gonna do it cinematically. And it all falls back to Eric Bischoff's vision of having the biggest good guy, all American, literally turn his back on everybody.
Yep. I mean, they were throwing beer cans left and right in that ring.
Yeah. And you look at,
I've never seen anything like it.
and you look at Austin, the man of the people. Literally the modern day era version of Dusty Rhodes. A man of the people, wants to, a working class dude, wants to tell his boss to go fuck himself, you know, all that kind of stuff. You look at Roman, forced down our throats for years. This is the guy. You will cheer for him. We didn't start cheering for him until he turned heel, you know? So at the end of the day, and then Cena, like you said, the stale, same cookie cutter 5 moves of doom, like, you know, make a wish foundation great, doesn't take away for all the good things he did outside the business, or he's done outside the business. But that heel turn, he turned his back on the people. Hogan in the red and yellow, that's your foundation of one of the best heel turns. That's your foundation. That's your blueprint. And if you run it...
And the thing is, we could look at Roman Reigns' heel turn, joining forces with Paul Heyman 5 years later, and think, yeah, that was one of the greatest stories ever told in the history of pro wrestling.
Yep.
John Cena's heel turn, a lot will say it was underwhelming. The moment itself was top 3 of all time.
Of course.
But the follow-up to it and the run that it's been for the last 6 months, people will argue there's been really cool moments, there's been really good moments, but there's also been moments where it makes you scratch your head thinking, like, I don't understand where they're going with this.
Yeah.
The Hulk Hogan heel turn of him being in the red and yellow, dropping the leg drop, cutting the promo he did with Nash and Hall with the beer cans flying everywhere,
Yep.
and for him to go full-on black and white with the NWO, oh my God. That's what we wanted to see with Cena after he turned heel. Like, what's he going to wear? What music is he going to come out to? Hulk Hogan was a completely different man when he turned heel in WCW.
And then you look at the cinematics of it. The vignettes that the NWO cut right after that, we had not seen that. So you look at, you know, the likes of Bray Wyatt and all those types of vignettes, run it back to that heel turn and that vision and that story. Dude, everything I've said goes back to literally the first thing I said when we were talking about Hulk Hogan. He is the foundation that has built everything. I remember when I met him, and I'll see if I can edit this into this video. He said, and I quote, Roman Reigns is the head of the table. When I was running with Afa and Sika, I was the table. He said that in front of me, like from me to this camera. I'm the table. And I don't think any truer word can be spoken when it comes to a professional wrestler. That's my final thought on that. Anyway.
He, as the kids say, he walked so the rest of us can run. But even he was sprinting back in the day.
I think he was sprinting, dragging the layout for the track. That's, you know, that's how I look at it. But because we don't want to go into, you know, the thing, you know, the takes that Peter Rosenberg had, which was a great take on the tragic death of Terry Bollea and Hulk Hogan. Do you think fans are going to regret booing him in his final appearance ever on Netflix's debut? No. That was a bad booking decision on WWE's part. I don't think that had... Listen, you're in California, and please correct me on the government sides and in the US. I'm Canadian, I'll be naive. But I know California is a very liberal state. Okay. You don't take one of the faces of MAGA, throw them in a liberal state with all the controversy surrounding everything at that point. You hadn't even had the election yet.
No, you had the election.
Oh, sorry.
He didn't get sworn into office.
Hadn't
yet.
gotten sworn in. So literally, there was three guys that were running Trump's campaign for him: Elon, Dana, and Hogan. You know, so it was just a bad booking decision. And from what I've seen online, and I don't want to comment or feed into it, because it's just, I was raised different. You don't speak ill of the dead. I don't care. You know, it's just how I was raised. You don't speak ill of the dead. You know, they're dead. Like, just let them rest. And I won't say rest in peace. I just say rest easy. You know, see you down the road. So I don't think they will regret it, because we're also talking about the IWC, and it's obviously one of the most toxic fan bases on the planet. So no, I don't think they'll regret it. I think some people will. I think Brooke Hogan will regret the 2 years that she's not spoken to her father. I think Brooke Hogan will live with some form of regrets. But the people who are out there tweeting and booing and celebrating, that's just who they are as people, and you can't change that.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
No, I firmly agree. I mean, the way that Los Angeles, and I'll single out Los Angeles as opposed to the entire state of California, because it is very blue, very democratic state, and one of your faces of what many would consider on that side to be a cult in MAGA. Of course he was going to get booed, and that's to me why he was getting booed.
Yeah.
Other people will say some of the other things that he, didn't take accountability for in his life, and some of the things that he said on public air. But to me, it was like, okay, Trump just got elected. He's about to get sworn into office in 2 weeks. You're in the most liberal state that the United States of America has to offer. And now you have this guy coming out in red, white, and blue who was a vocal point and ripped his shirt off into a Make America Great Again shirt at the RNC back in 2024. Like, of course, you're not going to get cheered.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that did not like the man Terry Bollea, Seth Rollins being one of them.
Yeah.
Has never really had nice things to say, though. He never really publicly stated why. He kind of just let everybody insinuate why. Will Hulk Hogan specifically have any regrets of his life and not taking accountability for certain actions?
I think so. I think, everyone in their last couple of hours kind of rethinks things, and, you might have made hundreds of millions of dollars, but you could have made nothing in the world but still have been a decent human being. Like, some of the stuff said, some of the stuff done. I think the biggest term is you want to live your life without a lot of regrets, and I think Hulk Hogan I don't want to speak for him, I don't know, but I would sit there and be like, yeah, maybe I should have done one or two things differently. So I think Hogan, wherever he is now, is whatever you believe in, whatever you don't believe in. I think he's just you're gonna have to come to peace with it before the last breath, before the how did Warrior put it? Every day, sooner or later, every Warrior's heart is gonna beat their last beat type thing, and they're gonna take their last breath. And before you do that, I hope you're just gonna have to come to peace with everything. And luckily, Hogan was baptized. He found religion. When I met him, he was wearing a John 3:16 t-shirt, and I think he was wearing 2 crosses when I met him. And it was just, you just saw something different in him compared to the person that you saw on television. So there must have been something there, and Jimmy Hart publicly stated like there was nothing wrong with him. He was in good health. So that's my opinion on it, man. Like, I don't want to dig into the negative. just because that's what everyone else is going to do, and I don't want this platform to be that. So all I'm going to say is, like I said on my post, Hulk Hogan, rest easy. Thank you for everything you did for professional wrestling and in the ring. And see you down the road type thing.
I will say one more thing about Hulk Hogan that we probably should have touched on earlier on in our tribute video is the double turn at WrestleMania 18. It's a lot of fans' favorite matches. I know it's Chris Van Vliet's favorite match. Hulk Hogan, NWO Hollywood Hulk Hogan versus The Rock.
Yeah.
In a match that was not the main event. I believe Triple H versus Chris Jericho was the main event of WrestleMania that year. And even Chris Jericho will infamously tell you that, like, we couldn't follow that.
Yeah.
Like, I was the last match, but we weren't the main event of WrestleMania that year. The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, and how the crowd got behind the black and white Hulk Hogan one last time. He's shaking the ropes.
Yeah.
And that breathed life into Hollywood Rock, and kind of a character that we saw on WWE television recently.
Yep.
Kind of evolve into the final boss. It kind of started with that whole double turn at WrestleMania 18, which is considered to be one of the best matches in WrestleMania history.
It's kind of funny. I still have the tickets unripped for that WrestleMania because I ended up getting pneumonia that week and I couldn't go to it. So you talk about not living with regrets. That might be one of them. I didn't get to go experience that live because that was. I remember sitting there, and even when I couldn't breathe, I was standing up on the chair, screaming at the TV. As I can't even remember how old I was then, but I was young. So, anyways, guys, tribute to Malcolm, Ozzy, and Hulk. What a week we've had in pop culture, wrestling, music, and you know what? On to the next one. So take care, and like always, be good people.